Alright, so we've reached that time of year where the local man-made ponds in the desert valley have been stocked with rainbow trout. So the first chance I got out there and just saw what I could do. I ended up catching a limit in about 2.5 hours. Although I wasn't really satisfied with the video that I got, so instead of dumping the episode, I decided to put together a quick video that just goes over some tips and tricks and goes over what has helped me be successful with catching some of these stalkers. If you want to fast forward to some clips of me actually catching fish, fast forward about 5 minutes. All right, so first thing I want to show is just the basic rig that I've always used for catching these trout that are in our local ponds and lakes. It's a very simple rig that anyone can do. There's a lot of other rigs out there, but I like to stick to what's simple. It just consists of a few things. I have some split shot, some swivels, and then I like to use size 14 treble hooks that come already on a leader. So first thing I'm going to do is I like to tie a swivel on, and I'll explain why I like using swivels here in a second. But to tie it on, just run your line through the eye, and then bring the line back, and you're going to create a loop here. Now, wrap your line around 5 or 6 times. Once you've wrapped it around a number of times, bring the end back through the loop that you just created. And that creates a new loop. And you want to bring the end through that new loop as well. Then you just tie it tight. There you go, it's on there, just like that. Then just cut off the excess, get it out of the way. Now, as I mentioned, I like to use hooks that already have leaders attached. So I just take one out here. And at the end of the leader is a pre-tied loop. And I'm just going to attach the loop to the swivel. Now, what's nice about this is sometimes trout will swallow the hook. And sometimes the hook just doesn't want to come out. When that happens, you're kind of stuck, cutting the line, leaving the hook behind. Well, if you do that here with this rig, once you cut the line, you just unhook the old loop, you put it on a new hook, and you're ready to go. You don't have to completely start over again with your rig. Then the last thing is, I just like to put a couple of split shot up above the swivel. Doesn't really matter where. As long as it's close to the swivel, that's fine. Really, the swivel is going to sink, and that's going to be kind of the start point of your leader. So as long as it's around the swivel, it'll work fine. And of course, the last thing is we have our corn yellow dough bait. I'm not going to say the brand name because I don't know what the rules are of saying brand names, but I think we all know, what this is. So what's really nice about this bait is that trout tend to like their food just off the bottom of the lake or the pond, and this corn yellow dough bait floats. So your swivel is going to sink down, and then with your corn yellow dough bait, it's going to float up from the swivel up, and it's going to make your bait about 18 inches or so off the bottom. So when I'm putting this on, one really important thing, and this is one critical thing that took me a long time to learn, you want to use just barely enough to cover your hook. If you use too much, the fish, when it bites down, it'll never bite down on the hook itself, and the hook will never set. And I've missed a ton of bites that way. There we go. So just like that, that's going to float in the water. The split shot and the swivel is going to keep it down, keep this part down at the bottom, like that. And the bait's, like I said, it's going to be about 18 inches off the bottom, and it's going to work great. There's a lot of different rigs out there where You know, folks want their bait 2 feet off the bottom, 3 feet off the bottom, right in the middle of the water at 5 feet off the bottom. There's all sorts of different things that can be done. Um, you know, you do your research. There's a lot of different options out there, but I just like having this rig because it's very versatile. It's very efficient. It's very quick to switch the hook out if you need to. It's easy to get your weight on because the split shot just kind of pinch on. So it's just a really easy rig to use, and it's something that anyone can do. All right, so the next thing to mention is the pole and the line that I like to use with that rig. I always like to use an ultralight 4.5 foot rod, and I always like to use really light line. I usually use 4 pound test. Reason being is trout bite really light, and with this light line and light pole, I know when I'm getting hit. There we are. Burping up a bunch of corn. Not a bad one. All right, so the next thing I want to mention is don't have your drag as tight as can be. Keep it a little loose. Trout tend to have soft mouths, so if the line has too much tension on it, the hook will just tear right out. Ooh. He's a bit bigger. A little dirty, but it's all right. So the next thing took me a long time to figure out. I think naturally we feel like we want to cast our bait all the way out into the middle of the local pond or lake that we're fishing in. A lot of these stalker trout actually like to hang out fairly close to shore. You really don't need to cast out more than 20 or 30 feet. Another nice one. Alright, so one last thing I want to mention. If you notice in the last clip, I don't use a stringer. I have recently switched to using a fishing basket. Reason is, a trout's gills are really sensitive. If you run a stringer through them, they're going to die almost instantly. Where with a basket, it keeps them alive longer. This means that your trout are going to stay fresher longer, and you're just going to have fresher fish by the time you get them home and clean them.
Okay. I have to wait for Shorty. I know they're coming. I don't know what time. Now, just make it hit the wall like that. I didn't fix it.
There we go. All right, so there we have it, a basket full of trout. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful. I just went over some really basic things. But as you can see, trout fishing doesn't have to be complicated. It's actually fairly straightforward. If anyone has any other tips, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.